What are the basics that you need to understand and demonstrate to have success in the game of golf? Some would call these fundamentals. What are demonstrated by the best players in the world, the best players at your course that you need to know to try to master? In today's video, we're going to go over the first fundamental or basic that I think you need to know and understand is to strike this golf ball solid. Today's session is so important. I cannot emphasize how important this concept is. I wish when I started the game, or even when I started to work hard at my game, I understood the picture, my intention of what I was trying to do. I wish it was clear. By the end of this video today, you're going to have a clear picture on what you're trying to do to strike the ball solid. You might not be able to do it every time, but as your picture gets clearer, the task of what you're trying to do gets clearer, then when you try to execute it, you have a better chance of executing it. In today's session, we're going to discuss striking the ball solid and how important understanding this concept is. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take our tool, which is our wedge, and if we said the fifth groove is the center of gravity of our wedge, we're trying to line that up with the center of gravity of the golf ball. And an easy way to see if you've done that is when you strike the ground. Where are you striking the ground? If you're striking the ground behind the ball, the center of gravity is getting too low behind the ball. It'll get under it or even bounce into it. Or if you strike the ground in front of the ball slightly, you'll see really good players do that. That ensures that you line up the center of gravity. And I want to explain that to you very slowly. I think this is very important. If we use the lie board and we put the ball on the lie board, and if I put the club on the lie board, if it stays level to the lie board, I'm going to hit it on about the second groove. I'm not going to get this center of gravity low enough. The club has to be moving down through the ball for you to get a solid strike. And a great way to measure this is just what we talked about before, which is making sure that you strike the ground in front of the ball. Let me grab some tees so we can measure where the club is hitting the ground. This is a pretty simple drill that you can do at home or on the range. Just put 2 tees in the ground. And what you're going to be trying to do is start with your club in between the tees. And then the intention is to try to hit the ground just in front of the tees. And what you'll notice is that the better players that you watch, like we said at the beginning, if you go to a PGA Tour event, they are so good at this. You rarely see them hit one fat or top the ball. They hit most of their shots very solid because they are so consistent at striking the ground gently just in front of the tee. And if I was to hit this golf ball and I put it in between the tees, my intention I hit that very solid was to hit the ground just in front of the ball. Now that our picture is clear, that we're trying to strike slightly down on the ball, let's get into some more details on how far down we're really trying to go. We're going to measure with the Foresight. We'll also have the X3 out here as well to measure it. We're going to use the hula hoop to explain this. I think this is going to be a very fun session for you to learn about how to hit the ball solid. If I grab this hula hoop, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some black electrical tape around it. And for our discussion today, that'll symbolize the lowest point that the club gets to. If we envision the golf swing as a circle, the club, if we view this as an arc, is moving down towards the ground. It's moving forward. towards the black line, it's also moving outward, down, out, and forward. We're not going to talk about the outward piece today. We're going to talk about that in another session. We are going to talk about the downward and the forward piece. Hula hoop's a great way to envision this. If we grabbed a golf ball and we put it back on the lie board, if the hula hoop was on the lie board, we talked about this earlier, if the club was coming in and not going down enough, we'd hit it thin. So the lowest point is actually under the golf ball, and ideally we want it to be forward of the golf ball. The club is coming down, out, and forward. It strikes the ball, then it goes all the way down to its lowest point. That's why you've heard a lot of people talk about trying to hit the ground in front of the ball. For some of you, this is very helpful to see. Our intention is to hit the ground in front of the golf ball. That ensures that the center of gravity of your club gets low enough to hit the ball solid, hit it high enough on the face to get the height that you're looking for. Now, there are many things that affect your ability to hit slightly in front of the ball and hit it solid with your club. We're not going to go over all of them today. We're going to calculate and go through just a few of the variables. I think this is a great visual for you to see that you're swinging in an arc. Everything that you're doing, the club, your arms, your chest, your head, everything's moving in an arc, additive arcs. The more that you can get everything moving in these arcs, the more consistent that you can be. So let me put the hula hoop to the side. And I want you to start to think about, if we're trying to hit down on our clubs that are on the turf, we've talked about that. And again, I wish I would have known that when I started playing. I had no idea. Let's talk about how much down we truly want to go. If I move this slide board over here, we're going to use the Foresight and the FlightScope to help us calculate how much down I go on this wedge shot. I hit that ball very solid.
AOA is minus 8.0 degrees.
The Foresight read 8 degrees down, and the FlightScope read 8 degrees down. That was a solid shot with a wedge from, I carried it 50 yards and I hit down 8 degrees. Let me hit that again. That one I hit pretty solid as well.
7.9 degrees.
The Foresight is telling me 7.2, and the FlightScope is saying 7.9. On this particular shot, it seems like for me to hit it solid, I need to be hitting down 6, 7, 8 degrees. Now that you have an understanding that we're trying to hit slightly down on this, how can we ensure that we give ourselves the best chance to hit slightly down on it? I want to briefly discuss where we put the centers of our shoulders and the center of our hips at setup to ensure that we hit slightly down. So if I take a point equidistant between the front and the back of my pelvis, the right and the left side, in the middle of my body, we'll call that my hip center. And we'll call this my shoulder center, equidistance between the front and the back of my neck and my shoulders. We'll call that the middle of my shoulders. So when you set up to the ball, I find it's more effective to push your hips forward 2 inches. So you have a little bit more weight on your left foot. I've got about 60% on my left, but I'm keeping my upper center in the same spot. I think a mistake I see quite often is people move their hips and their upper center forward, and then they get these very low shots. That angle of attack was minus 14 degrees on the Foresight, 14.48, and minus 12 degrees on the FlightScope. I would prescribe to you, when you're hitting, to take your hips, move forward 2 inches, but keep your shoulders pretty much in the same spot in the center of your body.
AOA is minus 6.5
And that
degrees.
adjustment is so powerful. I only hit down 6, and the Foresight did not pick up that one, but that was down 6. I hit it really solid. Ball went 51 yards. a good way to do this is you look at your upper and lower center. At setup, just move your lower center forward a little bit and keep your weight on your left side as you're hitting this wedge shot. There's no reason to shift back to the right. I see players all the time struggle with this. Some of them even start with their hips back. They shift back, and that is a recipe for disaster. You don't see any very, very good players with their wedges shift to the right as they're trying to hit this solid. We're trying to be very precise with our contact. As you've seen on the shots that I've demonstrated today where I hit it solid, hips are forward, shoulders centered. To recap today, what we learned about, this was a little bit more of an education, which I think is super helpful to understand. You're trying to hit the ball solid. That's the first basic or fundamental that we're trying to do, trying to hit the ball solid. To do that, we've got to take the center of gravity of your club and line it up with the center of gravity of the golf ball. If it's on the turf, the only way to do that is to go down ever so slightly. We measured on the Foresight and the FlightScope. We need to be down a certain amount, 6, 7, 8 degrees. We don't need to be down 15 degrees. Remember when I hit that shot where I move my hips forward and my shoulders forward, I hit down 15 degrees. You don't want to do that. You also don't want to set up with your hips and your shoulders back. If you keep them there, that is a recipe for hitting blades. On the Foresight, that actually said I hit up 1 degree. On the FlightScope, it said I hit up 1.3 degrees. You don't want to do that. You're going to hit it thin every time. So it's set up hips forward, upper center, stationary. Keep it there as you hit these nice, crisp wedge shots. If you're just starting out, we talked about putting 2 tees on the ground and measuring how you do at hitting the ground in front of the tees. If you need to, put the tees down when you're hitting so you have an awareness of where you're hitting on the ground. There also is another variable, which is your wrists, which control where the club hits the ground as well. We'll get into that in another session. But for right now, just put your hips forward 2 inches, and that should help you strike the ground slightly in front. If you still are having trouble hitting the ground in the right spot, you need to get with a coach to help you refine how your wrists are moving in your swing. I hope this video was helpful for you. I know that if I was taught this information when I started out, it would have greatly helped me as I tried to get better at the game. If you have any questions, please put comments below. I'm happy to jump in there. If you need even more details or you want some one-on-one sessions, find a local Operation 36 coach near you.